Friends, welcome to today's space, this adorable but kind of impractical mudroom space in the living room of my friends Carly and Anthony's house. Their dream has been to put a wet bar here for a while because they love to entertain, and after months of working together to plan this project, it is finally time to tackle it, so let's get started. This project is sponsored by my friends at DAP. Alright friends, let's jump on into this project. This was a fun one, so as you can see, I did bring my partner in crime, my dad, along with me for this ride. He definitely helped make demo day a breeze, and also he is a licensed plumber, which is great because we're going to be adding a sink to this wet bar situation here, so having him is a necessity on a job like this. Anyway, speaking of demo, this particular day was just kind of like a recon day where we were doing initial demo, opening the walls, seeing what we were working with, but what I will show you is the game plan for this space. We are hoping to turn this unused mudroom situation into a really cool wet bar for my friends, and the goal was to not overcomplicate this process. But because it is a smaller space, we did have to get a little creative, but we'll talk more about that a little later in this video. For now, let's fast forward to where the fun begins, which is on day 2. Dad and I, back in action. Yesterday was more of like a recon day where we were opening the wall to kind of check out the plumbing situation because we're gonna be adding, by we I mean Dad, is gonna be adding a sink to this wet bar situation. So while he works on plumbing today, I'm gonna get started on building the exoskeleton for the cabinetry and also demo the rest of this wall. So day 2 was where most of the exciting progress came along. After demoing the wall and working around my dad and trying not to hit him in the head as I was pulling trim off the wall, it was time to start building the base for the cabinets. Now bear with me for a second while I talk through the cabinets and construction and why I did things the way that I did things. So if you've been here for a while, you might remember I made cabinetry for my fireplace a while back, and I had to use wall cabinets for the space because the space could not accommodate standard 24-inch base cabinets, right? Okay, well, that is essentially what is happening in this build as well. So because we are working with about 16 inches of space in this little nook area, we did have to go with more shallow cabinets, and my friends chose these absolutely gorgeous pre-assembled cabinets in this like beautiful dark slate bluish color. Like, they're stunning. I swear I want to replace my entire kitchen with them, but we're not going to do that because I literally just finished renovating my kitchen a year ago. But anyway, not about me. So because the cabinets are shallower, I did have to create a base that was a little wider for the cabinets to sit on. And then up top, I'm going to be creating kind of like a small soffit to attach these cabinets to. That way, when we put the countertop on later, the cabinets look way deeper than they actually are in real life. But anyway, that was a lot. Once I was able to attach the base and the soffit to the studs, I was able to then attach the cabinets to the soffit and also to that base. And then we were able to call it a successful day. Lots done today. So we have the base built, plumbing's done. We tentatively installed that for now. I'm gonna do all the final leveling of that tomorrow. Second one goes in tomorrow here. That's gonna be a custom wine rack. Still gotta take that off the wall, but we're making moves. Tomorrow we get more work done. See ya, friends. So before attaching things permanently, I really wanted to get rid of this hanging coat rack thing on the wall. The goal was originally to take it off in one piece so we can donate it to another friend, but it didn't quite work out that way because I very quickly realized that the previous homeowners had glued it to the wall instead of screwing it to the wall. So there went that plan. No, they glued it. They glued it on. This isn't coming down in one piece. But anyway, once I was able to remove that coat rack, I felt better about being able to secure things permanently to the bottom of this wall. I just didn't want to climb over them to take this thing down. And once I was done taking it down, I then kind of tentatively put things where I needed them to be before moving on outside to cut some custom trim pieces to make these cabinets look like they are actually custom built-in cabinets. Can we talk about carpenter pants? These things are so underrated. Do you see this? I can literally just stick my... I'm forever living in carpenter pants. Side note, this is why I find it funny when people ask me for links to things like my jeans or my shirts, because I'm just excited about things like hoops to put tape measures and hammers in. But anyway, not a fashion channel, clearly. We are a DIY channel, and right now we are DIYing our way to a custom built-in by cutting a side panel down to size that's gonna fit perfectly on the side of the cabinets to hide the soffit and the gap. And typically when you're getting an end panel, they do come to the standard 24-inch size for base cabinets, so I just had to cut it down to fit the gap and make the cabinet look like a built-in. I swear my superpower is putting tools down and then not being able to find them. Oh, I found it. We're getting somewhere, it's looking good. So the last thing I really want to do today before I clear out for them to measure for the stone is there is a gap here and I want to put a filler piece there, but there's nothing to attach the filler piece to. So I cut out a couple of 2x4s. I'm going to basically screw that and that together to make an L, drop that L in there, attach it to that support, and then slap a filler piece, which actually is the piece that I cut off of here. So I think that's it for today. Once I do that, I'm good. The guy's coming tomorrow to measure for the stone, so I'm gonna come and meet him tomorrow. That way we can get all the dimensions we need for cutouts for the shelves. We're getting somewhere, friends. Let's finish this filler piece and get on with our day. One of my favorite things to do is collaborate with other people who make things, and this project was no exception because I got to work with a really cool team of stone fabricators for this project to make the countertop and the backsplash, and I just wanted to make sure that I had everything prepared for them and ready to go. And then it was time for me to step away until they were ready for install day, which was so exciting. Hey friends. Okay, so about to head over to the bar project. Today's a fun day because today is stone install day. I've been in touch with the stone fabricator throughout the past week or so as they've been cutting and measuring to make sure that they are cutting out the channels I need for the floating shelves that I'll be installing. I'm really excited to see what stone they chose for this project. I know that it's going to be stunning, and I'm really excited to be there for install just to make sure everything goes smoothly today. So let's go watch a stone be installed. Come on, friends. So huge kudos to this crew for installing this slab because it was gigantic and it was honestly kind of nerve-wracking watching them put it in, but it is stunning and it literally pulls the entire piece together in such amazing ways. But as you can see, there are some openings in that stone for some floating shelves, and there's an opening between those cabinets for a wine rack. So that is next on my agenda. Let's do it. All right, friends, we are back in the shop. I feel like it's been a while since we've been back in the shop together, but we're here now. Cabinet installation, done. Stone installation, done. It looks great so far, but now it's time for my favorite part of the project, all of the custom touches. Now, as I've been mentioning, we've been working in a pretty tight space because we're basically turning a mudroom storage center into a wet bar. And because of that, we have to get a little creative with some of the storage options. Now, two things that the homeowners really, really wanted in this space were, one, they wanted a custom wine storage or wine rack thing. And then the other thing they really wanted was some floating shelving. I am currently waiting for some of the hardware to arrive for the floating shelving. It's taking a little longer to get here than I thought it would. These things happen. But in the meantime, I'm gonna get started today on building the custom wine rack. They chose a pretty simple design for this, so I'm really excited about this. It should really only take me about a day to get it done, maybe two, just to make sure the finishing looks great. But we're gonna get started on that while we're waiting for some other things to arrive. I'm really stoked about doing some woodworking today, friends. Let's get started. So one of the things my friends really wanted in their custom wine bar was some storage for their wine bottles, and they did send me a couple of visuals that they were really drawn to, and one of them had this like lattice effect looking thing going on, so that is exactly the one that we decided to go for. Also, they wanted to choose pine for all of their custom woodworking for this project because A, it's budget friendly, and B, it matches some of the other accents in their house. So that is what I went for with this build. Now, when you see this thing together as one piece, it looks way more complicated than it actually is. Essentially, I'm just building a box that fits inside of the dimensions of those two cabinets underneath that beautiful, beautiful stone. And I am also using DAP's Weldwood Professional Wood Glue, which is a super strong, super reliable wood glue. You know I love this stuff. I use it on like every project, to attach these 1x2 dividers with some brad nails, and this is what's going to hold the wine in place and give it that lattice looking effect. One side down, I have one more of these to make, and then I have 2 middle pieces to make, so let's do it. Then we could pre-stain everything, sand everything, and we'll assemble tomorrow when everything's dry, but this should work. In theory, this should work. So one thing I've learned with custom built-ins that go into tight spaces like this wine rack, it is definitely so much easier to pre-stain, especially the inside of these projects before assembling. So that's exactly what I did. I just pre-stained the inside of all of these pieces before assembling them together. And I actually waited overnight before doing the assembly. That way, whatever glue I added would stick. I almost just crushed my foot. So despite me like dropping clamps on my feet during this process, this was actually the easiest part of this build process, and this is where the magic started to happen for this wine rack. As you can see, I took those side pieces and the 2 dividers that I added those 1x2s to, and I attached them to the rest of the box using screws and wood glue. I also actually decided to stain the entire piece as well, because staining both sides of the wood will help prevent any warping or twisting later on in the process. I'm just trying to cover all my bases. At this point too, I also added a back panel, and I chose a 3/4 inch back panel for this because I will be attaching this entire wine rack to the 2x4s that I added earlier in the process. So I want to make sure it has something to bite onto. And at this point, it was time to then call this part of the project a project and move on to creating those custom floating shelves. Now I might look cool and calm and collected while building these floating shelves, but I'm going to tell you right here that I was not. This entire process I was very nervous, and here is why. So remember how I mentioned that I was working with the countertop and stone fabricator in order to have them actually cut out channels in the stone for these floating shelves? Yeah, so just like their measurements needed to be very precise, my measurements needed to be very precise as well. And honestly, because I'm not working on this project in my own home, it's not as easy as running back and forth between my own living room to make sure that things are fitting. So yeah, I basically measured approximately 67 times before making any cuts or drilling any holes in these shelves. Anyway, I'm not going to run through the whole build process for these. I have a video that does that already on my channel with a very similar style shelf. I'll link that below this video so you can check it out. So that being said, we're going to kind of fast forward through this build process. What I am going to show you is a little trick that I use to make these puppies look very good. So for these shelves, I did source some pine in order to match the wine rack, and pine comes with a lot of knots and voids that need to be filled. So I used DAP's premium wood filler. This stuff is amazing. It can be tinted using whatever stain that you're using for your project. I personally like to apply this before I stain because I do like to sand it down smooth, but you can apply this after you stain if you'd like. Anyway, this stuff dries so durably. It blends in beautifully. Once it was dry, I was able to sand the entire shelves down, and then it was time for some finishing. Now, before I could call this part of the project, there was one more thing that we wanted to add to these shelves to elevate them, and it's something I've actually never added to shelves before, and now I want to add them to every shelf in my house, and that is gallery rails. So these things come in all different shapes and sizes. I'll link the ones that I used below this video, but they were so easy to install. The hardest part was actually just measuring and cutting the individual rods that go in between each one, but I do have a metal cutter in my shop, which made this easier. You may have to order them to size if you don't have a way to cut them on your own though. Ooh, that's gonna look cool. I have a metal cutting blade, so I'm gonna cut this in my own shop, but you can custom order these to size, like at any point from a website. Also, I have to put this. Yeah, that looks great. But you may have guessed it, after these gallery rails were installed, it was time for final installation day for this wet bar project, which was equal parts exciting and terrifying because all I could think about was what happens if these shelves don't fit. And you know what? I'm not even gonna spoiler alert this one. You're just gonna have to sit in suspense with me. Sorry, not sorry. Friends, Today is final install day for the bar project. We brought the big guy today. Got lots of tools in the back. Ignore the couch, that's getting donated to a friend. But anyway, I am so excited to finish up this project and finally see it all come together the way that it's been coming together in my brain. This is gonna be a fun day, friends. I'm gonna try to get as much done as I can this morning, and then Dad is gonna come help at the end of the day because installing those shelves is definitely gonna be a two-person job. I'm a little nervous about how they're gonna fit, but I think it's gonna be okay. I measured like 60 times. Let's get started, or let's get finished. I've never said that one before. Let's do it. See you soon. So because this was final install day, I wanted to start with things that had to dry first. So I first started by attaching the trim back on the wall. And since some of the trim is next to a wet bar, I did decide to use DAP's Alex Plus all-purpose acrylic latex caulk plus silicone. This stuff is great because not only is it paintable in about 30 minutes, it's also durable and waterproof, so it's gonna last. It also makes this trim work look like an actual pro did it. Look at that. Also, in order to install the stone, we had to remove some of the crown molding from the ceiling, and that left a couple of bumps and bruises in the ceiling, so I decided to use DAP's dry deck spackling to just even out the grooves and the bumps and make the ceiling look professional. This stuff goes on pink, it dries white when it is dry, so you know when it's time to sand, and basically once it was dry, I was able to sand it down and paint it. Next up, I moved on to the cabinets where I installed the hardware and any additional accessories like an in-cabinet outlet. And then it was time to install the toe kick to just make everything look super finished and professional. And once that toe kick was in, it was time to also install the wine rack. Now, once that wine rack was in place, I just wanted to add a little bit of finishing trim to really make it look like it is built in custom for the space. And after that, honestly, the easy part was done, and it was time to move on to the part that I was the most nervous about, which was hanging those floating shelves. Now, as I mentioned earlier, the stone fabricator cut channels in the stone for me to be able to install the brackets, and I did install them into the studs, and once they were installed, it was time for the shelves. Okay, I'm nervous. So the part that I was the most nervous about was that the brackets would not line up with the holes because of the variations in the drywall. The drywall is not perfectly straight, but guess what? Your girl did it! You mean I measured okay?
Nailed it.
Woo! Dad said it looks good. We got the dad approval. Yeah. So I don't know what was more satisfying, seeing these shelves come together or getting my friend's approval after seeing them.
It looks so good.
Yeah, I'm so happy you're happy. All right, so once the install was done, it was time for all of the finishing touches, like adding their personal things back on into this wet bar. And man, I am so excited about the way this turned out, but even better than that, my friends are so excited about the way this turned out, and that is just the most important thing because they're the ones that gotta look at it every day. Hey, listen, you gotta get a little creative with small spaces, but I really feel like we did a great job with this project, and I'm so proud of this work. This is definitely one that's going into my portfolio and going to my list of favorite projects I have done so far. It is just so cute. That being said, I hope that you all love this project as much as my friends did, to be quite honest, which is a lot. So there's a lot to live up to here. But if you did, please make sure to subscribe to the channel. Click that notification bell if you have not already. Like I mentioned a few videos ago, I am back in action. I've been working super hard to catch up, and I cannot wait to share all of these projects with you. But until then, friends, happy DIYing.